And looks like we are live. Maybe. We'll see. Getting ready to go. I think so. We are live on Instagram now. We should be live on YouTube. How's everyone doing? If you guys are in the live chat, let me know.
I'm not seeing one live on YouTube.
It might take a minute or two.
Yeah, I keep refreshing here. It says waiting on you.
Uh-oh.
Yep, told you.
37 seconds in, and we're waiting. Oh, hold it. There we go. All right.
Jeez.
I love the fact technology takes a little bit of time. Kind of savors the moment. Even when there's not much going on in the weather, sometimes you have to have a little bit of delay. We are live now on, let's see here, on YouTube, X, Facebook, and on Instagram. Of course, all of you at NYNJP, whether in the premium section, I hope everyone is having an amazing day. We're keeping an eye on the baseball scores after the Mets. Yankee fans, you're welcome. After this afternoon, taking care of the Orioles. And hopefully the Phillies can do me a solid and beat the Braves. We'll see. I also want to share, we are working on new designs for shirts. Let me know what you think. Kind of new design for them. So kind of excited about that. Although I will say this is an extra large, so it kind of fits like a little small. So kind of like I probably would have gone maybe with a double X on this. I don't know, but like my chest sometimes kind of tightens everything up a little bit. So, oh man, they're on Amazon tonight. The Yankees. Oh man, I hate when they do that. Why do we need like 60 different apps to watch baseball? I don't get it. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about tonight, kind of. Yes, it is very quiet. We're going to talk about some interesting features I'm noticing. Touch on a little bit on the fall forecast. I will be launching the full fall forecast. Say that 3 times fast. Next week for premium members. Same place where it is summer forecast is. We'll have it right there. And of course, we are starting the preliminary research into the winter forecast. Is there going to be a La Nina? How strong? Will it just be La Nada? We'll talk about all of that stuff, but that's in the weeks to come. Tonight, though, admittedly, this is probably going to be another short discussion as there isn't much in the way of a lot of things going on. But I'm going to go over some of the basics, take your questions until you don't have any anymore, and then we'll go from there. So I hope that sounds good. So let's see here. Pull up the latest observations. This is from Earth News School. This is a 250 millibar winds. And right now, this upper level low is just kind of spinning about. And it's transporting an air mass that's coming right from the Hudson Bay. Even a little bit of Arctic connection. Just a tiny bit. Coming right down through the Central Great Lakes and right into our neck of the woods. And boy, is it pleasant out there. It's about 10 degrees below normal. We're going to be in the upper 40s, much like yesterday, much like this morning, should I say. We're going to be in the upper 40s for lows in portions of the Poconos, the Catskills, northwestern New Jersey. I would not be surprised even for the Pine Barrens and some of the little out-of-the-way areas in south central New Jersey. So it's getting pretty chilly out there. In fact, this morning in Freehold, it got down to about 50 degrees. So it's certainly a lot of interesting stuff going on there. How long will this last? Well, the pleasant weather will last through the end of this week, and then we start to transition. But as early as yesterday, I was thinking that this ridge was going to be able to build right into our neck of the woods, and next week is going to return to more summer-like conditions. But some important changes started to show up last night in the model guidance and continue to show up this morning. So I wanted to share them because I did, and I wrote about this in the premium discussion, premium long range thoughts. I don't like the change of forecast 24 hours later, but when you have very impressive observations showing up and also a major switch in all the models, even the UK Met agreed, all shifted very, very quickly. That's pretty impressive. So, just a rule in meteorology in terms of forecasting. When you see a major shift in all the guidance to one solution very, very quickly, that means that there was something that fundamentally changed in the observations. Okay? So you have to do one or two things. One, you find the observation and you find that trigger, and then you pinpoint it, and then you understand what's happening with the evolution of the models, and thus the change in the forecast. Or you find a massive error. Now, an example of a massive error would be this. Let's say that let's say they didn't have sampling in portions of Alaska or around the northern Pacific. That issue is becoming less and less of a problem because now we're doing a lot of satellite-based observations, so you can kind of cover up for that. But a great example of an error like that would be the Boxer Day storm, right? Where 48 hours out, there was barely any sign of any type of winter storm, although we were watching on a water vapor satellite picture and saying, I was saying at least, I am not comfortable with what I'm seeing here, something's up. And then the model data improved and shifted towards a winter storm because the observations improved. Now, and geez, that's been so long ago compared to where we are now in terms of technology, in terms of getting observations. Now, with the sampling we see now, that issue is disappearing. But what can still change a forecast is the way that a certain feature interacts with the upper level pattern that changes everything else. So what were those features? Well, of course, we have our water vapor satellite picture here. Here's our upper level low, diving and sending shortwave after shortwave in. This upper level low has been a little bit stronger, okay? And these little features here sparked off a few isolated showers, but also the nature, the speed in which it's heading towards the Canadian Maritimes is a little bit slower, a little bit more robust. So this tells me that the polar jet stream is a little bit stronger than what was expected, at least what I was expecting. So when I consider this, I'm like, okay, so these upper level lows are moving a little bit slower and breaking down a little bit slower. And there is more below normal heights towards the Canadian Maritimes and the Gulf of Maine than what we were originally thinking just 48 hours ago. So the progression of these features, you have to adjust a little bit. But then we go to the Pacific. Now we had a typhoon, a major typhoon off of Japan a couple of days ago. And I think it was called, I probably mispronounced it, but it was with an A. Okay, so that lifted up into the northern Pacific. And the precipitable water and the latent heat of that storm is now interacting with the polar jet stream. And when that started to interact, that fundamentally changed the evolution of the storm, of this pattern. Okay, not necessarily a storm, but this pattern. You see, there's a general rule. When you have a major hurricane or typhoon curve to the east of Japan and head up into the northern Pacific, typically that means that you get a robust trough on the East Coast. Now, understand, we're still in summer pattern here, so the wavelengths are different, right? So a lot of people, they use this rule really well in the fall, right? Especially like in October and November, you get one of these storms shoot up around Japan. About 10 days later, you get a nice coastal storm along the East Coast somewhere. Usually a strong shortwave, polar shortwave diving through the upper Midwest and heading towards the mid-Atlantic and then curving out. In the summer, because of the wavelengths, what you do is that you amplify this part of the trough, this part of the trough, and then the trough around the northeast coast of the United States and around the Canadian Maritimes. That increases your potential more for backdoor cold fronts than it does for major coastal storms, okay? This also is a sign of the amplified polar jet stream that the Western Atlantic ridge is going to be displaced a little bit further out into the Atlantic. And that's going to be important, especially if the tropical Atlantic gets more active. That takes us to tropical forcing. Right now, La Nina is still La Nada. But it is looking like it is progressing towards a weak La Nina state. But by the time it has any influence on the weather pattern, both in the tropics and over North America, it will likely be beyond the peak of the hurricane season. This is why the forecast, including mine, of an above normal hurricane season is in serious trouble. Those who went extreme are in a lot of trouble because at this point, for me, I need 15 storms to verify the storm level because I went about 20. Other locations went 25, 26. And that would mean that you would need 20 tropical systems between now and the end of November. Is it possible? Sure. But it's becoming more and more difficult. And the longer we go into a stretch of nothing going on, well, it makes that forecast become less and less likely. So some of the factors involved here is that the MJO, which we have right here, has not exactly been very favorable. In fact, it suppressed development throughout much of July. And then the idea was that in August, hey, look, the MJO is going to move into a favorable state and gangbusters, right? Then, wow, it's going to really unzip. And so far, we're in August 20th. Not really. We've had one. Not exactly explosive, right? Why is that? Well, our MJO, which was expected to march through phase 3, 4, and 5, is now rapidly expected to weaken through phase 3 and then go into a neutral state. That's not exactly an alarm bell sound for major tropical development. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't expect any tropical development. Look, we're heading towards the peak of the hurricane season. There's going to be some. But is it going to be the extent where you can knock off 20 tropical systems? I don't want to say absolutely not, but it's going to be real difficult. Real difficult. So this is an important sign here. But this is also a sign that yesterday when the data was coming in, and again, this is showing up on the GFS guidance as well, that this MJO wave is supposed to move through phase 3, phase 4, and then kind of weaken into phase 5, right? Well, now it's going through phase 3 and then weakening into a neutral state and not really getting much into phase 4. So let's say for argument purposes, it gets into a very weak phase 4. Phase 4 in the MJO during this time of year usually supports more of a ridge building from the Mississippi River Valley into the eastern United States, and it also introduces a better chance for above normal temperatures. If you're stuck in phase 3 and phase 3 influences, basically the weather you get is what we have here. Upper level low over the Canadian Maritimes, pleasant weather conditions compared to 90s at the very least, and a better chance for more influences from central Canada and also the Canadian Maritimes. So there's your backdoor cold fronts. So as a result, when we take a look at the tropics, I mean, this is as dead as you can get for late August. I mean, usually when you have a very active system, you'll have like at least a couple of robust tropical waves, maybe a tropical depression trying to form, or you can have like 3 or 4 tropical storms lined up, marching their way in, seeing which one survives and then threatens the United States or the Gulf of Mexico. Nothing. Zero. And the forecast for the next 7 days is nothing. Zero. No development. Why? Well, intertropical convergence zone, although slightly more active towards Africa, features literally no mid-level or low-level circulations. None. No sign of anything developing whatsoever, and nothing really showing up in the model guidance. And in fact, the model guidance going beyond through the next 15 days on the European ensembles really doesn't show much. I mean, this is, okay, maybe we can pop off a tropical depression or two. No raging hurricanes, no destructive season. It just isn't showing up. Now, again, that doesn't mean you can let your guard down and nothing's going to happen. I'm not saying that because we have to get through September and October. What I am saying is that thus far, the wording of, and I was strongly against this, of extreme, historic, and people are already using climate change as a reason for it. This is why you don't do this stuff. Because now you're going to fall flat on your face, and people who doubt climate change are going to say, see, they're lying. Nothing happened. Okay? This is all about messaging. Okay? The fact that we had very warm waters is still a factor, and those very warm Atlantic waters sets up the potential that if you do get something going, that these storms can rev up and become very powerful. Okay? That is true. But you cannot correlate above normal temperatures to above normal activity. And we're learning that this year. Why is that the case? Because of what I warned about when we started the season. Dry air coming off the Sahara Desert. The lack of La Nina developing. I warned this back in May. If La Nina continues to falter like it was during the middle of spring, then this forecast for the tropics is in deep trouble. That's where we're at right now. Because of the lack of a true La Nina signal, we have a lot of shear going on in the Atlantic. We have a lot of dry air coming off from the Sahara Desert. And we're not seeing the development, despite the very warm waters. So what does this tell us? This tells us that when it comes to using climate change as a reason for a forecast, if you just zone in on that and that's all you focus on and that is the basis of your forecast, you will fail, because the forecast of such a season is far more difficult. And we knew the minute that La Nina started to fail that this forecast was in trouble. I am just surprised that the La Nina state has been so weak, that has been so slow to develop, that as a result, we haven't seen that impact. Now, could we see a rapid development in the tropical development in September? Absolutely. 20 storms in September and October? Well, that would certainly be impressive. I'm not sure if I've ever seen anything like that before, but hey, is it possible? Well, we're going to find out. But that's basically what you're going to need right now to verify these forecasts. Because at least for the next 7 days, which gets you to August 28th, we got nothing significant. And right now, the prospect showing up here in the model guidance, not really showing up all that much as being impressive. So our weather pattern under all these influence, again, very weak, if any type of La Nina influence on the 500 millibar pattern, more of an influence from that tropical low pressure system in the Pacific, and the below normal heights being featured over the Canadian Maritimes. When you start seeing this signal, that's when you start to get the backdoor cold fronts. Now, I said in the premium video this morning that I didn't buy the widespread rainfall on Sunday night and Monday, because I thought that the development of whatever's trying to form over the Canadian Maritimes was a little bit too robust. And it looks like I was right about that, because a lot of the model guys backed off on the intensity. But this certainly looks like a scenario. When we take a look at all these models, again, they're all showing the same theme. You don't want to get caught up in the details, but just a general theme. but all of them are kind of showing the same game here. Trough off the East Coast. And so what happens with that is that first we get our upper level low lift out. We get a nice little ridge axis here for Friday and Saturday. So the weekend is looking beautiful. If you have any plans for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, seasonable temperatures, very comfortable, dry conditions, head out to the beach, go to a ball game, whatever you want. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. Then here comes our backdoor cold front setup. Now, in the model guidance last night, it produced a very, very robust feature. In fact, we'll show it here. And it's 0Z. Let's see if that loads real fast. So in the 0Z, it produced this feature here, which produced a whole lot of rain. And I thought to myself, this doesn't make much sense. So I took a look at 850 millibar heights, and those features were kind of all over the place. It had 3 different upper level lows and a lot of bagginess here. So it tells me there was some sort of convective error. So when we go back to the guidance for today, notice it is much weaker. We still have that little weak feature out here, but it's a little bit further east, so it's a little bit weaker. As a result, this tells me that it's still working on some of the convective details. There's still some error there, but it's moving away from any type of idea of a widespread rainfall. And when you take a look at the 700 millibar relative humidity, this tells you, okay, this is a situation where you got an onshore flow, broken cloud cover, pesky showers. So I don't like the idea of a washout. In terms of our 850 millibar temperatures, look, we're cool. For this time of year, on August 21st, 850 millibar temperatures around 7-8 degrees Celsius. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. But we are going to moderate because we are in summer after all, and we get back into the 80s. But with the influence of the backdoor cold front, we basically, instead of pushing towards 20 degrees Celsius and possibility of temperatures in the lower 90s, we're stuck around 15 degrees Celsius in this pattern because of the trough just off the coast. So what that means is basically 70s and 80s. So near to slightly below normal rather than above normal temperatures. And what that looks like in the model guidance, again, beautiful this weekend. On Monday, a few pesky showers. This is with the backdoor cold front. I like the idea of with the backdoor cold front moving through on Monday, a few widely scattered showers. I think some of this is overdone, but I like the idea of an onshore flow, variable cloud cover, a few isolated widely scattered showers, maybe a little bit of drizzle here and there, especially on the coast, and then kind of unsettled going forward, but not a washout. A lot of low clouds, scattered broken cloud cover, some breaks of sun here and there, and a few pesky showers. So many locations barely get 1/10 of an inch, heck, even 1/100th of an inch of rain, but some locations could pick up a brief shower or two. So that is generally what we're looking at here in this weather pattern. And so now with that, I am going to take your questions and we'll see how everything goes. And let's see here. And also, of course, we'll check out YouTube, see what we have in there. And we'll go from there. Keep up. Let's see here. Andrew Madden says, keep up the amazing weather. It's been perfection the last 2 days. Yeah, I know. My wife loves it too. Honey, what do you think of the weather the past couple of days?
Beautiful.
Beautiful. See? Absolutely beautiful. And let's see what's going on here. Wow. The Twins are killing the Padres 10-0. And I'm actually pulling for the Phillies to beat the Braves. So it's a weird night, that is for sure. Temps card says, temps dropped into the 50s, even near the suburbs near Newark and Elizabeth. Felt like fall was coming. I know. I even set up my Halloween decoration up there.
I'm gonna start very soon.
Yes. We are definitely starting. We're getting ready. We're making plans on decorating already for Halloween. I know. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. Let's see here. New shirt looks neat. Shame Godzilla image is copyrighted would look perfect on the shirt. Yeah, the one thing I'm more terrified than Godzilla is Godzilla's lawyers. So, yeah, they literally have been known to destroy entire careers in putting something like that. So as much as I love Godzilla, I will not put it on any merchandise ever. But I'm looking at different providers. I got another shirt coming in from another provider, and we'll see how it looks, see how it feels, and then we'll make a decision and start selling it. Then you can wear this shirt along with me as we're tracking winter storms. Got pummeled with rain from a deluge earlier this week. About 4 inches of rain flooded Route 78 and Route 22. Great point. That was one very impressive mesoscale event. See, the one thing that's difficult with forecasting for those events is that a lot of them are driven by mesoscale boundaries, right? In this case, you had a stationary front, you had a ton of moisture, and light 850 millibar winds. So when these thunderstorms developed, they basically kept on training over Connecticut and portions of New Jersey, and they wouldn't move. So that's why you ended up with 5, 10, 11 inches of rain. Pretty much over a season's worth of rain in one shot, right? So incredibly impressive rainfall. Unfortunately, fortunately in some cases, central New Jersey barely got anything, but I'll take it what I got. What is remarkable is the low dew points out west to the Midwest, down south to Tennessee. Yeah, I mean, this is a real, true, pure polar air mass, and very impressive. And the one thing about La Nina seasons is that they will support robust polar air masses over the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and yes, the Northeast. The problem with La Nina seasons is that, especially as you head towards the winter, it's more difficult to get those blockbuster storms. But you can get like a lot of Clipper like low pressure systems, and if you get the pattern lined up just right with the high latitude blocking, they could still be pretty robust seasons, especially if you have a weak La Nina with some high latitude blocking. So we'll see how that works out. Looking at temperatures on Earth News School, which is free by the way. While at the surface up to 850 millibars has expanded much yet below freezing, the amount of green and light greens with temperatures cooling toward freezing has expanded a lot. Yeah, I mean, we're in that time of year where we're going to start to see our polar and Arctic air masses really start to grow and mature. We should be able to see a pretty good expansion at 850 millibars by about the first week of September. New ghost satellites weren't around 10 years ago either. Absolutely. Yeah. The observations that we have now is just through the roof. Absolutely love it. We are in, and look, for some of you younger people out there, especially if you're in high school and whatnot, you have to understand you're in the golden age of meteorology. I mean, honestly, if you told me when I was 15 that I would have at my fingertips all sorts of models, satellites, radar, observations, right at the tip of my fingers, I would have said you're nuts. Or I won the lottery and became a multi-millionaire. The only thing we really had back then was the Weather Channel, especially Live in the Eights, that type of stuff, waiting for Jim Cantore to get on TV and do the water vapor bit, right? And then your weather radio. And then maybe if you're lucky enough, you can go to school and get good into computers and try to work your way through GeoCities. For those of you who don't know, Google GeoCities. I'm kind of dating myself there. And try to get to the National Weather Service, which took about 15 minutes to load. And then you could read like a discussion, try to figure out what they're saying. So it's amazing what we've gotten to in terms of technology and what we can see now. It's mid-August and even the 18Z GFS can't spin up an Atlantic hurricane. I know. It's crazy. Bunch of Clipper systems that leave us with a bit of snow on the ground and looking like winter on a regular basis instead of getting 1 or 2 blockbuster snowstorms is fine with me. giving us 3-4 inches of light, fluffy snow for Christmas, and then a regular parade of light to moderate clippers is perfectly fine. Well, I mean, if everything worked out. Although, I always say, personally, right, when it comes to winter weather, I'm fine with some events in early December, even mid-December, but late December, because so many people are traveling, I know everyone wants a white Christmas, but in reality, in terms of traveling, in terms of Santa Claus, in terms of you getting your gifts to your family, I prefer no storms in that time period, and usually that works out. Sometimes it doesn't, as you know, because then everyone's just safer in that respect. Because if you got storms going around, that some people, they don't use common sense when they're driving, and it just can lead to a lot of mess. Let's see what we got on YouTube. What is the situation? What is the obsession with politicians blaming oil for climate change? Well, okay. That is a tricky question, because one thing I always try to do is try to stay out of politics, because no one's going to fix the GFS, so I don't really care who's running. So how do I address this? Okay, so there are some who like to blame one specific industry and thinking that solves everything. It really doesn't, okay? There is some data out there, some reports out there that let's be dead honest. Exxon knew about global warming, climate change, and what CO2 can do to the atmosphere. And they're like, "Oh, that's not. We're not going to share it." That's the truth. Okay. Does that mean that the easy way to address the issue is to blame one industry and try to shut it down? No, because we all rely on that industry. So it's kind of stupid. I mean, forget about electricity. Just look in terms of all the plastics we use and the different, not only just like, computers and stuff and your phone, but medical technology, right? So to me, it's a no-win proposition, because then nothing really changes. So there's some people that like to blame one thing. In terms of immigration, might be people. In terms of debt, it could just be one political party. They like to blame, and the reason why they do that is because when they're interested in getting votes, it's easy to control people by blaming one thing and saying they're the bad people. And by doing that, you can control the message, wherever that might be. Okay, this is History 101, by the way. I'm really big on studying history, and the one thing I learned, no matter what political ideology you believe in, stay away from anyone or any group that blames one thing on all the problems, because that's usually someone who's trying to manipulate you. Okay, that's pretty much what I'll say about that. Do we have any questions on X?
There was another part to that question that we're asking about your textbook.
What dynamic and Mescal textbooks behind you? Oh. Okay. All right. So I have a couple of books here. Okay. So, of course, you got the Northeast snowstorms. Okay, that's a must. You have mesoscale meteorology and forecasting. You can get that at the American Meteorological Society. Severe convective storms. Again, this is from the American Meteorological Society. Outstanding book. I strongly suggest getting it. This is an old school book by John M. Wallace and Peter V. Hobbs, doctors, of course. Atmospheric Science Introduction Survey. This I got out of Oswego. I still got the notes in there. Big tests coming up on Monday, apparently, on this page. Let's see here. Of course, anybody who's going to be studying meteorology is going to have to know all about Holton. Okay, this is, again, a little bit older, but the equations don't change. And the one thing I would say about the equations is when you're studying the mathematics, don't get bogged down in the mathematics. Think about it in terms of when you're looking at the equations, get yourself a satellite picture and then see how the equations work with the satellite picture. Okay? See how the physical properties work. Okay? Because if you get bogged down in the equations, you just kind of get lost and you kind of get this look in your eye like as if you lost your mind, because it could be very, very overwhelming. It knocked out like 30 other students that started out in my freshman year. Only 3 of us were left when we graduated. But what you want to do with a lot of this is you want to look at the equations as a representation of what you're seeing in the satellite pictures in your radar and your surface observations. And so the best way to do really well in meteorology is to take those equations and apply it to real world situations. And once you do that, everything becomes easy, because then being able to move the different parts of the equation to create the solution you're looking for in terms of like finding data, finding out, like let's say you're working with precipitable water values and you want to get the 500 millibar heights associated with that, it's all in the equation. And the best way to understand that is to see it in real time, and then you know what you're looking for because you understand all the different properties and what they mean in those equations. Let's see here. I got a couple different books here. My brother got me this one, Blizzard, The Great White Hurricane. That was really good. Another good book, if you want to read more about climate change, The Weather Machine. This also is a study on AI. This is a great book. I got this on YouTube, not YouTube, Amazon. Let's see here. I got a couple more. Oh, wait. We got Applied Dynamic Meteorology. This is a great one by Sam Miller. Again, a lot of great equations, a lot of great content. This one you get at the American Meteorological Society and on Amazon. Let's see, what else do we have here? We got so many. If you're interested in climate change, I would suggest reading 2 different books. And I'll pull them out for you. See this one. And there should be one more. Where are you? Let's see. Farmer Tribute. Here we are. Okay. If you're interested in climate change, I would say to get Judith Curry, Climate Uncertainty and Risk, and Our Fragile Moment by Michael Mann. Read both of them so that we get an idea on both spectrums of climate change science and how to handle risk. And I think by using both and then comparing, contrasting, and figuring out which process works best in individual situations, I think by doing that, you become a more well-rounded scientist. Anyone that blocks out and like doesn't share different points of view, usually it's just living in an echo chamber, and you end up missing half the story. Because with science, you can never just assume that you're always going to be right. You want to listen to different points of view, contrarian points of view, and then go over them and figure out for yourself what's the right path. And then from there, keep on studying. It doesn't end. Science ends when you die. Then it continues after you die, but you're not reading because you're dead. So you get the point, right? So you never stop learning. So those are 2 books I would suggest getting. Let's see here. And a lot of these, when it comes to climate change, there's some people I don't agree with, like Dr. Mann, but I still get his books because you got to read them. He has some good points, some bad points, but they're points. And you got to know what they are. Statistical Methods in Climate Science, that's also a good one by Telson. And Synoptic Dynamic Meteorology. This is a new book on the AMS. Really good book. I've been reading it. It's been helping me with improving my forecasting. This was a great one from the AMS. I would suggest getting this as well, especially if you've been. Let me fix this here. Whoops! I don't want to knock over Godzilla. There we go. Especially if you've been out of college for a bit, it's good to read up on those books. Yes, I was at Oswego. They still had the Difax machine when I was at Oswego. They were just about taking it out. We just got 3 computers. One of them had GARP that everyone wanted to get on. So it was always like a fight to see who's going to get on GARP first. Then they expanded the computers. I think now it's like a huge computer lab. But it had 3, then they went to 4, then they had 6. By the time I was senior year, they had like a row in the back of very basic Windows computers. It took about 15 minutes to load. We used Netscape for a browser, but GARP was a separate program that was just amazing. I loved GARP. It was an amazing product. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have a lot of good questions heading back into the live chat, and then we'll check out anything on X.
Nope,
Okay, good.
I'm checking around.
What is your gut feeling on the next decent amount of rain for central and southern New Jersey? We need rain. Nothing over the next 15 days, unfortunately. I'm going to be looking out maybe for mid to late September. Nothing really stands out right now. Unfortunately, that would bring significant rainfall to the region. Guarantee politicians will claim the lack of hurricanes this year, if it pans out, is also due to global warming. Someone will. Doesn't work very well though. But here would be the argument for why this season didn't work out because of global warming. Because the Pacific Ocean is so warm, La Nina wasn't able to become established because the waters were too warm, and so therefore it short-circuited the natural circulation, and thus no La Nina. There you go. See? Now, how would that work? Okay, so the waters were so warm in the northern Pacific that the process for the trade winds in the SOI never really developed because you didn't develop the gradient and the density gradient. And so because of the lack of the density gradient, you didn't get enough sufficient upwelling. And so because of the lack of upwelling, no sustained La Nina. How's that? Not just right off the top of my head. Simple fact is almost all politicians care about one thing. Kit Kat bars. Should I be concerned if an AI asks whether I can give it the extra location of John Connor? Oh, aha, I get it. I'm like, what? I'm like, I get it. I would not be concerned. Just tell them the mall. I don't know. Let's see here. What else do we got here? You had some good questions tonight, guys. Outstanding job. Just to make sure I didn't miss anything. So yeah, I mean, the weather pattern overall right now is pretty quiet. I'd say enjoy it. You know, I mean, a lot of people say, hey, Steven, when do you go on vacation? It is vacation. It doesn't take me too long to get a forecast done. I can watch the Mets while I'm working.
Oh, the last time you tried to take a vacation, there was a goddamn hurricane.
Yeah. See, I'm just not going to plan I'm not going to plan vacations because then when I do that, then a hurricane shows up or a winter storm. It's uncanny. Every time I say I'm going to take some time for myself, boom, major storm. Never fails. Even for the wedding, even for our wedding. We're like, I'm not going to be around because I'm getting married. What do we get? We get a rainstorm.
Rain and wind and yeah.
Right? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then people who say, hey, look, can you control the weather? Guess what? If I could control the weather, we would have had nice weather for our wedding. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, come on. Or at least
Froze my ass off for photos.
yeah, that was not fun. It was like misty and ugly out. It was supposed to be a nice fountain too, with nice sunset. And So, don't control those things. And the next time, I'm not going to declare when I'm going to have a vacation, because you can guarantee for those who are wondering, when are we going to see more rainfall? Most likely the next time I declare I'm going to be going on vacation, that's going to be when we see widespread heavy rainfall. I can almost guarantee it. So let's just go for our wedding anniversary in late October. Most likely we'll have like 6 days of rain. It just always works out like that. Never fails. Let's see. Not bad. Update. Of course, the Braves are taking a two. What's going on with the Phillies? Why are they having so much trouble lately? That is interesting. But the Marlins are winning. That's even more interesting. So, the overall theme with this weather pattern right now is enjoy the break. Enjoy it right now. I would say focus on your supplies. Just check on them. Bottled waters, batteries, all that stuff. We are moving towards the nor'easter season anyway, so you want to make sure those supplies are also in good position. Maybe start looking for a new snow shovel on Amazon if you need one. But don't get a snow blower, because people who get snow blowers always jinx the winter. So just going to put that out there. Don't do it. Don't be that person. Let's see. Would you get those 6 days of rain even if you go to the desert Southwest? Well, I wouldn't go to desert Southwest. It's too hot. Can't remember the last time in mid-August we had weather this nice. It's been a while. It certainly has been a while. I mean, I'm certainly enjoying it. It's been something that, honestly, back in June I was not expecting. I thought, I'm like, all right, we're locked in. Here comes the Bermuda High. Here we go. But because of the lack of a true La Nina, that idea failed. See, the other thing with the lack of a true La Nina is that the Western Atlantic Ridge can get knocked down easier. So that's another reason why it's like a little bit surprising. Wow, it's been an interesting summer. We're learning a lot. And by the way, in case anyone's asking, this really doesn't have anything to do with the volcanic eruption from a couple of years ago with the water vapor in the stratosphere. That's going to be more of an issue for the polar vortex as we move towards the winter. Not really as strong of a connection when it comes to tropical forcing. So I just want to bring that up. I can verify the snowblower jinx. It's not even 9 p.m. and the official Newark airport temperature is 69 degrees with a 48-degree dew point. As for the Phillies, they have been the same since that trip to London. Wow. So the Mets basically jinxed the Phillies. You know what they did? They gave them the curse. That's what happened. That's what happens when you have a mascot that attacks children and takes their popcorn. I'm just saying.
YouTube, honey.
Oh, what do we got in YouTube? Let's see. The largest lake effect event that I experienced while up in Oswego. Let's see here. There were so many. From in 1999 to 2000, those two seasons both were impressive. Impressive to me, though, because I was a kid from central New Jersey, and here I am watching like 3 feet of snow out of nowhere, But all of them were really impressive. And not one of them did I ever get any time off from class. We're like the meteorology students were the only ones that had to do classwork. We had to analyze the snowband and find our way to get into the Met Lab, which was always fun, right? So everyone else, like all the communication majors, were all off. They're like sitting back watching TV, writing about their finals on Big Bird or whatever the hell they're writing about. And here we are, Met students, all three of us, by the time we got to junior year, trying to get into the Met Lab because we had to write about the winter storm and what factors are driving it and whatnot. I think the biggest thing that stood out in terms of the Met Lab that I remember was the winter storm that missed. I think this was, what was it, in 2000? I think it was around 2000. I forgot which year it was. But I remember there was a lot going on about the winter storm that wasn't, right? All the model guys suggested, and then the next morning we come in, nothing. Just pushed right off the coast. I remember that. I remember that because the professors, Dr. Ballantyne, was pulling up all the data and explaining what happened, what he would have done, what he was seeing, what the forecast was, what changed, why it changed. That was really fun. It stunk that everyone busted, but it was really fun to learn how can you take a bust and learn from it. And it was a really great learning experience. So I remember that vividly. I remember Lake Effect snows with pizza parties. Remember that? That was fun. You know, get like 4 pizzas, you know, have a slice or 2 or 10, whichever, you know, and just watch the winter storms. You know, like everyone else, go out and drink and whatnot. And we're like standing there watching radars. So, God love that. Let's see. I think for pretty much both baseball and the NFL, those London trips are season killers. Wasn't too much for the Mets, but I agree. I don't like the international games. I think they're ridiculous. Baseball is for, like, the only thing I do for international is maybe Mexico and Canada. That's it. I don't need to go to Europe. Okay? No one in Europe is getting all hyped up about baseball or having a baseball team. It's not happening, guys. It just isn't. It's all about football there, or as we call it, soccer. You're not going to beat that, okay? So, no, you know, it just isn't. So I don't understand the point of it. Japan, I get. There's a whole culture there. I get it, you know. Even the Philippines makes more sense than London, okay? Philippines is huge baseball over there. South America, huge. The Caribbean, huge. London, no. Just isn't. Yes, I know they already do Canada. I mean, like, if they did, like, what I'm saying is that, like, if they did an expansion team in, let's see, the Pacific Northwest or something, that would make sense. You know, Europe doesn't. It would make more sense to pull in a team from Japan. You know, I mean, that's a good question. Will La Nina show up compared like El Nino no showed? El Nino didn't no show. It just was kind of disjointed, and in some cases it didn't behave as it normally should, but it still showed up. You know, I mean, I can't rule out there just being no La Nina influence. And what that generally means is that the polar and subtropical jet streams are on equal footing. Higher potential for phasing of storms and jet stream cores. Blocking would still be difficult to pull off with a positive QBO in place, but not impossible. Okay. But it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be, this isn't a slam dunk that this is going to be a warm winter based on what we're seeing now. If we had like a moderate La Nina right now heading towards strong, I'd be like, yeah, winter's going to be, if you're in the Great Lakes, it's going to be great. Around here, we'll have snow to rain slop, you know. But with what we have now, kind of all options open. So we'll see how it plays out. And so with that, it's 8:55. I think I'm going to call it a night. We had a good one. Outstanding job, outstanding questions, everyone. We'll see how this pattern evolves. And in the meantime, as always, stay safe out there.